We're getting ready to address some stuff that I know is not going to be easy to talk about. I know this isn't something that you want to talk about. But before we even get into it, I want to just say thank you for taking the time to address this. Since we've been doing the series with you, Life After 40 Years in Prison, some stuff has come to light that is not very glamorous at all. This definitely is not easy things to learn about, hear about, and it's just some really ugly stuff. And I really just want to get your side of the story because this was brought to our attention through some people who just were able to find this. And since talking with you about this, we've learned that, not everything is exactly what it appears to be. And you have agreed to take the time to share with us your side of the story. Some paperwork was found that talks about an appeal, but it really talks about more than that. It talks about a history that involves you, and it definitely is violent. The first thing is there was a violation after you came home from the federal time, and I don't even want to talk about that right now. I want to talk about first this paperwork that talks about your history. And it says that after you publicly beat the mother of your then infant child while brandishing a firearm, you were arrested and pleaded guilty to being a felon in possession of a firearm. And it says that this was what you went to federal prison for. It says that there was a maximum sentence of 10 years for this with up to 3 years of supervised release. But because of your extensive violent criminal history, they gave you 15 years instead, which was giving you that career criminal act charge. But after talking with you about this, you've told us that, this isn't exactly the way that it went down. And I would just ask that you share with us a little bit about what happened in this situation in particular, where it says that you publicly assaulted the mother of your child.
To start off with this story is I'm going to start off with the beginning. In 2001, there was an issue involved with my lady. She was pregnant. It was a guy.
The issue was the guy.
Yeah, the issue was the guy. Initiated, I went to see him with a firearm. Correct. I did have a firearm. There's no doubt about it. I went to see him. When I went to the office in the back, my ex happened to get in my way. And all I did just put my hands on the chest and pushed her out the way. Not hard, but pushed her out the way to get to the guy. She didn't want me to commit any type of act against this guy, even though he was wrong. That was that. Eventually, the state had the case. The state dropped it because the guy never showed up. The guy didn't want to go to prosecution. It was an issue that he was wrong, guilty, and he didn't want to go any further, so it was dropped. However, because the gun came from California, and the prosecutor wanted me that bad, they referred the case to the federal government. The government came the same day, got dismissed, and I went with the federal marshals for the booking in the United States District Court. After that, I was charged with just regular felony possession until they decided to use my prior convictions. My prior convictions brought that sentence from 10 years to 15 to life, and that's why they pushed it. Now, for some reason, what's funny is my ex never testified against me. She was there to support me. I have an affidavit from her saying that the individual was harassing her, sexually harassing her, and put his hands on her. And I have that affidavit. We submitted. The judge never paid attention to it. However, the issue with the charges was not against her. The charges was possession for a firearm. And that's all I got charged with. So that's a whole different issue. Now, 2016, I get released. We're having a custody battle, her and I, over a child. I won. I had custody of the child.
They gave you custody of the child?
Yes.
Even after everything that had taken place?
Yes, I have the papers. I have the papers for that. And what happened was when she requested a passport, she wanted to go to Mexico with my daughter. I said, "You're not going to Mexico." That's when the issue started. She was in a relationship with another man. My personal feelings, I think he was behind it. I have no proof of it, but it was because we were cool for a minute. Not cool, but I'm saying we was at peace. And then,
you and the woman?
Yeah, the ex. We was at peace for a minute, and then all of a sudden it just switched over. I was on probation. I mean, anybody can pick up a phone and say, "Hey, listen, he just threatened me," without even really nothing happening. They don't care about what I got to say. They really don't give a. So when you're an ex-felon, you're a marked man. I mean,
especially with somebody with your criminal
yeah,
history.
and it's tough. And that's why when I talked about fear of coming out, those are one of the fears. That's why I isolate myself. I really don't talk much. I'm not trying to be rude or nasty, but I stay out of people's way because the less they know about me, the better off I am. Anyways, get to the point. It came time to that my daughter, for some reason, I felt the pushing away, the separation. I asked her, why you're not contacting your family from my side of the family. And she came out with a statement about, well, I'm not comfortable with my Spanish family. I'm comfortable because her mother's black. So I said, well, where's this coming from? Where's this racial coming from? But I know there was some racism going on at the time that I was with the mother because they made racial comments against me in my face. And so I believe that somehow along the way while I was away and I didn't have any, contact like I used to. I used to get visits all the time when I was in Petersburg. Here in Virginia. The minute the feds took me across the country, I didn't have no more communication, physical contact with them. And it changed. So she turned around and disrespected me. The only thing I told her that, don't ever talk to me like that, I'll smack the crap out of you.
You told this to your dog?
That's all.
Yeah.
Now, the mother was listening in the background, and of course, what she was doing was recording my conversation. That triggered it. So the mother went back into the original crime. I went on your behalf to deal with this dude because I loved you. Okay? And then you turn around, I found out 5 years later, you the one who called the police on me. He didn't. That hurt me. And then I called to the house one day when you and I were still together, at least I thought so, and you was in bed having sex with another man while I'm on the phone, and the dude disrespect me. So that bothered me. And even with all that, I still forgave him when I came out. I didn't want no problem. I left her alone.
That happened while you were locked up?
While I was locked up. So when I got out on probation, she was, of course, afraid because of the things she'd done to me. I always try to assure her that everything was cool because she's the mother of my daughter. I'm going to leave it alone. You're living your life, do what you do. Just let me have my relationship with my daughter. That's all I ask. No, I never put my hands on my daughter. But I tell you what, she did. Because I told her, you put your hands on my daughter, you're going to have problems. One day when I called, I think my daughter did something in school real bad. And I said, you know something? I don't like you putting your hands on my daughter, because I don't like that physical punishment, because this is what happened to me when I was a child. I was abused. But since she's out of hand, you got my blessings, And so if anybody put their hands on her, it was from the mother. I never did. I never had the opportunity to. I've been in prison. So what happened was this. Now to get to this. In this case here, it was nothing more than a simple threat. It was a misdemeanor, disturbing the peace. That's what it falls under, disturbing the peace under Virginia Beach law, state law. And they dismissed the case. I ended up getting dismissed, but I got violated, and that was her purpose, to violate me. While I was getting violated in prison, she was filing papers for full custody. And so she won because I went back to prison. I never fought it. So it dawned on me that all this was all set up and planned. Now, what the prosecutor did is this. I filed an appeal. I fired 2 lawyers. Now, to get an oral argument, your chances probably out of 100,000 is probably 0.3. I was one of them 3 that got an oral argument. I was blessed, and I did it by myself because all of my attorneys told me I never had a shot to win. So if you get an oral argument, they grant it, that means you did something good. However, because I can't go to court and represent myself because it's an oral argument, it's not in the course of appeal, in the feds, you can't go on your own.
You have to have a lawyer.
I was forced to get this lawyer. The problem was by the time I got the government's brief, it was after the case. I wish I got it beforehand. Because if I got it beforehand and I kept complaining to my lawyer, give me a copy of that brief so I know exactly what to tell you to say, because it was my argument he was basing his argument on. He didn't do nothing. I did all the work. What happened was I got this brief, his brief and the course of appeal brief, and they matched. The same words the judge used is the same language he used in his brief to counter mine. Really, that's not the issue, and that's not the facts. So what happened is the judge based their decision on misleading facts with the government. And that's what always bothered me about the justice system. Whatever the prosecutor says is what the prosecutor gets, no matter what. You can be innocent, okay? You know what a federal court judge says? In fact, the Supreme Court judge says that there's a case, and I can't remember the case now, but I have it. And I always liked what the judge says. He said, I even fear the government. Because if the government want to, they can convict a ham and cheese sandwich. Simply because the wrapper comes over here, the ham is made in this state, the cheese comes from this state, and the bread is made from another state. Even though it's kind of funny, but the reality to that is true. The government can convict anybody, no matter whether they're innocent or guilty. This here is not the facts. The first case had to do with the gun and with the guy. The second case had to do with a simple threat. It was a misdemeanor charge against her and my daughter. The reason why they said my daughter, because I said I was going to smack the crap out of her. Technically, I have a right to say that to my daughter, you know. But I only said that as a. It's like when you're a kid, your mother says, "Stop that! I'm gonna smack the crap out of you." What you're gonna do? You're gonna stop because now you got mommy mad, and you know. And simply, that's just, you know. I come from a different generation.
Look, I want to say this.
Yeah.
And Danny, first of all, thank you for clearing this up. The one thing that I get from this more than anything, I mean, you say so many valid points in there. You come from an entirely different generation.
Yeah.
You know, back then, my mom used to beat me.
Oh, without
you
question.
know, your parents are going to put you in check.
Right.
Nowadays, you do that, you're going to court.
Yeah.
You're going to get an assault charge, damn near, or some kind of domestic abuse charge against your family. And you can't even say these type of things these days. What this says, it says that after you publicly beat the mother of your infant daughter while brandishing a firearm. And what you just said in rebuttal to that.
The only thing that they got me was an assault because I put my hands on her chest and I touched her.
You were trying to get her out of the way.
Just trying to get to the guy, but that was in 2001. This one here was just verbal. It was a phone call. It was done through a phone call. Yes, I admit I did get mad at the mother, and I said some nasty things without question, and I'll take full responsibility for that. I was upset because based on the facts, what she did to me, and I just blew a circuit at that moment.
I want to throw this in here. Through After Prison Show, we laugh and joke about a lot of things, and then there's certain things that we do very serious, such as what we're doing with you. But one thing that I've laughed and joked about in the past is about a guy calling home from prison and there being another man over at that house. But that legitimately really does happen. And you went through this situation personally. You went through this situation where you called home and she had some other man laid up in there with you or with her, and you heard this.
Yeah.
A person who's been through the type of things that you've been through, the violence that surrounds your life, the short fuse that you are guaranteed to have. I can't even imagine. And then throw love into the mix of this. This is a woman that you loved.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine the type of stuff this would have you feeling and thinking, and you're still locked up when you're dealing with it.
You know, it's crazy because I can't say exactly what he said because he used some really profanity, but when I called, he hung up on me. He says, "Don't call my house." Now, the crazy thing about it is I'm the one who was paying that house. I'm the one who left money for that house to continue for a while. It just ran out. I was working. All we did is remodeling kitchens and bathrooms.
When was this?
2001.
So this was when you were out.
Right.
For the
when I got out
months.
from doing 24 years from the state.
So you were working during those 11 months.
Yes, I was working.
You had a little bit of money, and you left that money for her.
I left it for her for the bills and for my daughter, and we made sure that the house was paid up for. And so apparently along the way she met this dude and he started shacking up over there. I know my daughter came to visit. She was 4 years old. She said, "Daddy," and I won't mention the guy's name, he was walking around in his underwears. So when I looked at the mother, I asked the mother, "Who's this guy she's talking about?" She said, "She's not." She tried to play it off like my daughter was exaggerating. But I even though I heard what she was saying, I didn't believe her. Because,
you didn't want to believe
no, it's not that. It's my daughter. Kids usually don't, you know what I mean? Depends on the demeanor. I mean, I read body language. And there's something, a feeling with my daughter. It's just surviving the spirit energy that I felt.
So that
she was. I believe my daughter. And then the way the mother looks. She looks fear. Her color being black turned pale in her eyes. And there's just certain movements and
so you
twitches.
already knew something was up.
I felt there was something going on. I even dreamt it. Because I was spiritually connected with her. I loved her that much. I mean, I would kiss the floor that woman walked on. What happened was it was my fault. I fell in love with her. She was not in love with me. She loved me. There's a difference between in love and love. This experience here taught me a lot about love.
I mean, probably makes it even harder for you to trust people, given what you told us the last time, or given what you told us in a previous video, how you just have an impossible time trusting people.
Yeah, and that's why I haven't been in a relationship since I've been out. I've been single since her and I broke up physically in 2004 of my conviction. No, 3 when I got arrested. And so we've been physically apart, but we officially broke up when this guy came into the picture in '87, and then he picked up the phone the second time. My heart dropped. I knew I didn't mark the wrong number, because in prison you can only call the number that's on your phone list. So I knew I didn't make a mistake and mark another number. And so he picked up the second time, and I said, listen, I says, you know, at least you could show me some respect. You know, what's your name? Who I'm talking to? And he told me his name. I said, do you know who I am? He said, yeah, I know who you are. I said, do you know what I'm about? He said, no. I said, well, you know, I told my ex, I said, is your speakerphone? But I heard them they were having sex while they were talking to me. And it bothered me, it really did. It broke my heart.
You said that happened in 1987, you had called home, correct?
No, that I called home in 2007.
Oh, in 2007.
Right, because this is the second sentence. This is not the first state. This is the feds.
So you met her during 2001?
When I got out, right. And that's who I had a relationship with and had a daughter. And he told me that the only way I'm going to talk to my daughter, I had to suck. So that's when I got extremely upset on the phone.
No, this wasn't the same dude.
That was the same dude that, no, not when I first originally went after, no, 2001, no.
That was a different guy.
It was a different guy. The first one, you know, he was a black dude. This guy was a white dude that she was shacking with. It was her boss. She lost Wendy's job because of me. And I felt bad about that. I really did. She felt bad. I think you should file a lawsuit because you're not responsible for what another man does, especially I'm not an employee.
Yeah.
And so she didn't want to file a lawsuit. I even was going to draft it for her. No, you know what's crazy? I didn't know she called the cops on me. The video wasn't even working in Wendy's. I didn't know that she was the one that called the state police on me until about 5 years later. And then for 2 years, I kept it quiet and still kept the relationship alive because I didn't want to lose my daughter's relationship. And it's sad that the government has to come up with some bullshit like this and misrepresent the facts, because those are not the facts. The gun had to do with Ron, and the threat had to do with her, and they're two separate incidents. But what happened is they used the gun, and then they used the violation, and they put it all in one sentence without any periods or without any, it's called time frame. That's what they use in court. One happened 2001, the other one happened in 2016, the threat. You see what I'm saying? And they don't break down the context, so when they put it together in one sentence, it sounds like it was all involved in one thing, and it's not.